Hello there, I'm David Spurway. I'm the Product Manager for Power Systems in the UK and Ireland, and I'd like to briefly take you through IBM Power Systems and Cloud with some assistance from the Marvel Avengers, which may not necessarily be what you were expecting. Marvel Avengers, after all, I'm going to take myself as being the IBM Iron Man here because I'm the hardware guy, so I shall therefore talk in terms of Iron Man and go forward. So Cloud, when I talk to my customers, Cloud after all has a Cloud version 1, Cloud version 2 and also Cloud version 3. Many of the customers I speak to are still thinking in terms of Cloud version 1, which is perfectly valid after all, but Cloud version 1 is all about hammering down on costs. It's about capex reduction and keeping costs low. That's where a lot of my customers are still thinking about, is where they're actually going to put the compute, where they're going to put the processing power, and so that's where it comes into Cloud version 1. However, Cloud version 2 is also worth considering. Cloud version 2 is moving forward and not worrying less about where the servers are and more about where the applications have been created in the first place. DevOps and agility, those kind of elements are more examples of Cloud version 2. Another example of Cloud version 2 would be Bluemix. So Bluemix, after all, you create your new applications, tying in the new APIs, and you don't necessarily worry about where they've been created, but you create these applications out there in the cloud in the first place. You can tie Bluemix in with IBM Power Systems if you do things like work with APIs. So 5 reasons why Bluemix with Power Systems is right for the hybrid cloud. We can actually talk about these things, which are being published by another individual here after all, so you can follow the link and read what he says about it. We can rapidly bring products and services to market at lower cost with IBM Bluemix. You can create new applications and do the different new interesting things. New business processes can be created with Bluemix. You extend the investments by connecting to the on-premise IBM Power Systems that you may already have. So you can do cloud integration services which are part of Bluemix and move forward from there. You can maybe also create endpoint APIs allowing easy access to DB2, Oracle, SAP databases in the REST-based API function and tie things together in that kind of way. And you can also process huge amounts of data and thousands of tasks with the parallel systems. There are lots of cores in the power processors. Power processes very, very fast, and more information about that in another video. And then you can get the peace of mind as the IBM Power Systems are so reliable after all. So 5 reasons why you could take Bluemix, which you can create as a Cloud version 2 kind of application, and tie them into Power Systems. And then we can get up into Cloud version 3. Cloud version 3 is where we really begin to transform industries, working with the very large quantities of data that is available out there and be able to move forward from there. So it's a kind of new evolution of the cloud. It takes us from worrying about where the compute is, then moving about where the applications are, and then worrying about where the data is. And that's what Cloud version 3 is all about, is more about data. So let me introduce the Avengers and take you through exactly how the Avengers are going to help us with this kind of a Cloud version 3 approach. We can still do Cloud version 1. We can still take Thor and his hammer, hammer down on the costs and lower the TCA, lower the cost of acquisition of these systems, and be able to get the cost benefits of Cloud version 1 using Cloud version 3. So they're not mutually exclusive, but we can take them beyond just thinking about capex reduction. We can begin to mine social media. We can look at things, looking out there at social media, maybe that be Twitter, maybe Facebook. There's a lot of ways we can do that, and IBM has a number of different things which can show you how to do that. I can also work with the kind of spy-like process we have here. We can actually look at dark data. Dark data is an example of that, is when you tweet, for example, and you put your witticisms out there on Twitter, you may or may not be aware that you're also putting geospatial data there at the same time. So that is dark data that is there available to be mined. We can actually follow where people have been, at what times, and what locations they've been at. And so dark data is another form of data out there on the cloud that you can begin to mine and get useful answers and information from. More forms of data are also turning up at the very large scale of the Internet of Things. Internet of Things, after all, has the capability to be vast numbers of sensors out there, vast amounts of data being created, and you can mine that and smash into that in a sort of Hulk sort of way to be able to get new kind of answers which haven't necessarily been available. Very large sources of data, very large sources of potential revenue can also be sourced here through the Internet of Things. And then with all these kinds of new forms of data and getting answers from that forms of data, you can begin to target your customers with super accuracy, a bit like Hawkeye and his bow and arrow. So you can make sure that actually customers are being targeted with information that actually is pertinent to them, relevant to them, and target them so they maybe are just beginning to think about making a purchase, maybe they're just beginning to put this out on social media, and you can get to them and give them an offer at a timely fashion which will actually improve your business and be able to be interesting to them. One of the IBM points of view, after all, that we publicised is that we can see them in the future moving from spam mail, which you're not interested in at all. Spam mail may actually begin to move towards your priority mail. If we can target you and give you just the right sort of thing you're interested in at just the right time, that kind of marketing information may actually move from being spam to actually being the stuff you're really interested in. And you can select the best platform for the task. As I say, I'm going to be Iron Man here. I consider IBM Power Systems to be excellent at mining these kinds of forms of data. We've got the high performance, we've got the bandwidth, we can do very excellent transforming and analytics on that data. So you can use the best platform for the task, and IBM Power Systems can be excellent in that space. You can also keep the boss happy. So the boss himself, after all, he can look at his own business and maybe get answers out of his own business far faster than he could before. And of course also with all these new forms of accessing data, new forms of targeting your customers, you can also see business benefit from this as well, which is another way to keep him happy. And at the end of this, you can therefore be a leader in your area. You can be a leader in your area of business. You can either, of course, choose to be a leader or a follower, but in this case, if we look at all this data, mine it intelligently, get useful answers out of it, and make business benefit from this information, you can be a leader in this space and move forwards. CIOs, after all, are not always seen as business leaders. Sometimes they're seen as business partners or service providers. Sometimes they're even seen as cost centers. And of course, we want to be able to work with CIOs to be able to work with this all kinds of new data and move forward and be a business leader. One of the ways that we can do this is we can use a 360-degree view of the customer. So a 360-degree view of the customer with a particular process here. We can take information which are in your systems of record, these kinds of information in databases which we understand and we've worked with today, and maybe they're already running on Power Systems. We can take the systems of record information and we can add to that other forms of non-structured data, be that email or other sources, maybe from the sort of social media sources, and bring them together in one particular place so you can actually see what's going on with your customer from your structured data and also the unstructured data. And you can begin to put recommendations based on the information you can see about what they might actually be interested in, and you can also follow in real time what's going on with them in that part of sittings and be able to target them with all these sorts of information and talk to them at the time when you're on the phone to them and give them recommendations. How do you do that? Well, we have Redbooks to be able to show how to build 360-degree applications, and part of that structure is the big data platform, one piece of which is the Watson Explorer. And Watson Explorer can run IBM Power Systems and be able to tie these different forms of data together, and the picture I showed you before is one example of using Watson Explorer to build a 360-degree view of the customer. So why do you want to use IBM Power Systems in the Cloud 3.0? We have this form of data gravity. Data, after all, is in itself can be hard to move. This might be more appropriately referred to as data inertia, but it can be hard to move because it can be very big, it can maybe have regulatory issues if we're trying to move it outside of, say, as a premise. It might also be in a form that's cost and expensive to transform and move. So data gravity can be in one way, can keep data where it is. The other form of data gravity, if you've got the information in one place, it can actually bring services to it as well, because if it's hard to move, well, why not bring the services to it in the first place? So if your data is already running in Power Systems, you can have the scale of the data, you can work with that, you can be regulating your data, and you can also avoid the expense to move it because you can keep it where it is. Then, of course, if it's already running on Power, you can bring other things to it. And why move it anyway? You've got the reliability and serviceability, you've got the security, the lower cost of ownership, and you can add to it and add value using the data you've got already. And if it's not running on Power Systems, then maybe you take the power to the data. We can see new customers using Power Systems in new ways to be able to move those into different areas, be able to take them out towards where the data is, and also, of course, keeping it where the data was in the past. So, those are different ways of looking at Cloud version 3. You've got your Cloud 1, keeping the cost low. You've got your Cloud 2, new applications, and also Cloud version 3, which is focused on the data. If you want to know more, come and feel free to ask me, and we'll see what we can do. Thank you very much.